The Event Industry News podcast is sponsored by Present Communications. Present provides broadcast quality live, hybrid, and virtual event production trusted by organizations where reliability really matters. From corporate town halls and conferences to high profile live streams, they design and deliver fully resilient systems that work first time. Hello, everybody. Welcome along to the Event Industry News podcast with me, James Dickson. Wishing you all a very good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever or wherever you tune into today's podcast from. And on today's show, we're going to be talking, I guess, education, training, development within the industry. All those things I suspect are going to be covered as we get into the conversation with my guest today, who is the CEO of the Power of Events. I'm delighted to say that joining the Event Industry News podcast on today's episode is Rick Stainton. Rick, a very good afternoon, as it is on this Monday afternoon to you. Thanks for joining the podcast.
No, thanks, James. It's a real pleasure to be here. Appreciate it.
And all sorts of. It's really important that we work chronologically today because there's a story to tell. There's an important announcement about further developments in the world of the Power of Events, and indeed in the programs that you are, striving to bring to the industry. But before we get to sort of where we want to end up today, let's. For those people listening to the podcast who might not be aware of the Power Events and who and what you are, let's give some context to everybody. So let's tell us a bit first about yourself, but particularly about what the Power of Events actually is.
Thanks, James. I co-founded Smile, the leading agency that is now Identity. Exited that 2 years ago, bought by Identity, and Michael and Dom and the team now run that. I'm sure it's going great guns, and that was a good 25 years of my life where we had a pretty successful run. And then, obviously COVID hit, and there was a lot of campaigns, hashtag campaigns during COVID from a very difficult place. All the associations, Save Nightlife, Save Music, We Make Events, Save Exhibitions, and they were really trying to sort of heighten the profile of events for when COVID hopefully finished, that events would still be live, the industry was still there. But they didn't know each other. They weren't collaborating cross-sector. So we did a sort of one industry, one voice banner where all the different sort of association leaders of industry from the just different sectors could learn about each other's work campaigns, to media or government, and maybe help each other and, not bump into each other. And from the back of that, post-COVID, a lot of people sort of turned around to us and sort of suggested that was fine, but big challenge is that no one really knows what the events industry is. It's not clearly defined anywhere in one place. So hundreds of businesses sort of got together over 2022 and created a framework for what the story, the breadth, the map of the UK events industry was. So we set up a Power Events, a not-for-profit organisation, purely for the benefit of the industry, supported by the industry, funded by the industry, and designed and all the content delivery by the industry. First of all, the 7 sectors were defined, from business and brand experiences to exhibitions and congress, bespoke sport events, music and live performances, outdoor and festivals, public celebrations, weddings and private parties. Those 7 sectors were defined by hundreds of different inputs from many different businesses across the sector. And it was really clear that we had to be completely impartial across those sectors because there's a huge amount of shared supply chain and freelancers that get involved in all those different sectors. And then we made it very clear that we were across 4 nations as well. So that everybody from all different areas of the industry regionally would feel they could get involved in this at any level and any size of business or indeed individual freelancers. So that was formed, that map of the industry was put on the platform, the website, with 7 sectors defined on one side and then the sort of industry infrastructure on the other. So we've got 21 media partners like yourself brilliantly, which is the first time they've all collaborated together on anything from all different areas of the industry again. About 36 trade associations all are now collaborating, supporting us, profiled on the platform again. About 50 support organizations that promote best practice in like welfare, DEI, skills, accessibility, and then some university partners. And that platform has suggestions of all the events in the industry that you can go to, Confex, meeting show, tech show, event tech, and whatever it might be, and industry events by associations or media. There's suggestions of podcasts like yours. There's suggestions of LinkedIn and Facebook groups people can join. There's a big careers hub on there where people who want to get into the industry can see the breadth of the roles and the 5 routes into the industry. So there's a huge amount of tools, whether you're been in the industry a long time, you're just joining, want to get into the industry at any level. And it's about your personal understanding and progression in the industry, as well as perhaps as a business. So yeah, it's a really useful one place now, impartially, that the industry is backed for the first time collectively, that gives that map, and then signposts you to lots of organizations to pursue your own journey.
And not to dwell on it too much, but going back to the how and when the organisation sort of came about, and it's sort of its birth, if you will. It's strange that it took a sort of a catastrophic event for the whole industry to actually make us wake up and realise that actually, when it came to representation, it came to telling people outside of our industry what the industry contributes and how it works, that we really needed, a body, an organization, call it what you will, to actually represent the entirety of that community. Because I've said it many, many times on this podcast, that when you say I work in the events industry, that the spectrum that one word encompasses, events, is vast. You could be a wedding planner, you could be a production manager for the live touring industry. You both work in the events industry, but those roles are wildly, wildly different. And it's so important that an organization like this came along in order to create that joined up thinking for people who are external to the industry, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. I mean, COVID was a horrible experience for everybody in the events industry. But if there's one positive that came out of it, was that realizing that we all deliver, whatever our role is, whatever sector, wherever in the country, whatever level of supply chain, we're all delivering content and create great experiences in a live environment for the benefit of society, business, networking, change of behavior, social or physical welfare, fundraising for charities. I mean, weddings are obviously should be the one experience in your life you probably most remember, but a lot of people aspire to that one sporting event that they've always wanted to go to, that one act, that concert they've always wanted to go to. That those tribal gatherings are hugely important for us to look forward to something in life. And then from the sort of business side, a lot of people always aspire to going to that one place where they learn about that new product, network with peers, develop and understand their own sort of involvement in their own business's strategy. Events are hugely part of people's diaries they look forward to in the year, that makes their life more enriched. And frankly, sharing experiences is probably the most amazing thing in this day and age when the world ain't great out there. To have that sort of something to look forward to, whether it's whichever sector it is. And you're right, from a event professional perspective, we're a 70 billion contribution to the economy across the 7 sectors, employing hundreds of thousands of people. But we've grown up very quickly and organically in 40, 50 years. And we're not an association. We don't, we're not have members. We're not trying to do any of their work. They're all supporting us because they do great work representing their sectors and members for whether it's, development of their own, networking, government lobbying, and so on. But to have that one impartial, simple map, that showcase that everyone backs for the first time credibly was a lot of hard work. There was obviously a little bit of unwinding of institutionalized behavior, as you referenced, for the last number of decades. But I think people recognize that, everyone trying to do the same thing slightly differently is a massive waste of effort and resources, when we could maybe just take 1, 2, 3 things that everyone moved together, the dial together in one sort of thing that wasn't conflicting with anyone else's work, could make a massive difference and benefit everyone. And I think we found that sort of hole, that gap, which I think a lot of people were screaming out to be filled, but no one was stupid enough to take it on.
Well, I wouldn't say stupid enough to take it on, but having taken it on and having developed to where it is now and where it sits today, that's now also put you in a position to talk about, why you're on the podcast today. The experience of work program is something that is an evolution of other stages of that the power events have been involved in. Tell me a bit about the schools program, because I think that's where we really need to start on this journey to bring us up to speed where we are today.
Yeah, definitely. So once we set up the platform, and we obviously go to about 40, 50 industry events every year and remind people and meet our partners and supporters and listen and learn for them. It's like, well, what are you going to do with this quite unique collaboration across the sectors, across the 4 regions? And we have an advisory board of about 40, 50, mostly association heads from all the different areas, and some industry leaders from different areas of the industry and supply chain. And they just sort of suggested that perhaps one thing we could uniquely do for the benefit of the whole industry was go into schools and inform of those 11 to 16-year-olds particularly that there is an events industry. It is huge. We welcome everybody from every background and any educational sort of setup. And there's probably a job for them that they're not aware of, could be of interest to them. And lots of other industries have done this for many, many years, some well, some probably not so well. And if we really want to evolve our industry to represent society for the diverse and development of it from an audience perspective, we need to have a talent pool coming through that reflects a lot of the new skills and understanding of what society and the world out there is actually responding to. And we need to have a variety of diverse backgrounds because the audiences we're presenting to all our different events are a diverse society. We developed a schools program. The EIF Purple Guide gave us a grant to trial it in the east of England. And it involves a piece of content, a deck, which is really easy. Anyone can present it, event experience that was, a lot of it's not representative of the platform that the industry with schools developed so that they really engage the kids in 20, 30 minutes, involves like a video and a bit of interaction and a quiz. We have a portal set up that basically schools register when they want someone to come in from an industry ambassador in some regions. And then ambassadors, individual event professionals, go on, register, and then see that list in their region of the school saying, can you come in on this day to present to year 9 to year 10s in assembly or a classroom? So the deck is basically briefed. We brief all the ambassadors. They get sent to the schools for them. We give them the logistics, taking care of that. So it's really easy for an ambassador not to have to do a lot of the background work. Every child gets a lanyard because you can't have an event without a lanyard. So the 5 routes of industry on the front.
Yeah.
They love it. I think they get them into festivals for free, but they don't.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
5 routes on the front, and there's most important, there's calls to action on the back for them to go and look at the platform afterwards with their parents, key influencers, or teachers. Go and explore the 7 sectors. Look at the careers hub. Explore apprenticeships or placements or direct recruiters or university courses. So they get a really good overview, really inspiring, by an event professional from their region with a bit of a call to action follow up and a little fun mechanism. It's completely consistent. So that was the first program. We've done just coming to the 2 years now, 2 academic years. We're in 9 regions after the trial that we did with the East of England from the Purple Guide grant. We did about 8,000 kids in that. And now we're in Edinburgh and Liverpool, Manchester, Bath, Bristol, Birmingham, London, Leeds, the South Coast, Hertfordshire. We've delivered 142,000 kids across about 650, school engagements.
Wow.
It's growing all the time, and we're looking at a couple of new regions, maybe launching for the end of this year as well. And the ambassadors, there's hundreds of them around the country from all different backgrounds that are loving the sort of personal development and the feel of giving back and the actual impact. You can see the change of the kids' understanding and impression of what the industry is. We have this stat where we ask a question, do you know what the events industry is? Never considered a career in it at the beginning of the deck. And like no one puts their hand up. We ask the same question after the presentation. That rises to 72%. And kids, if you've got them, they don't do anything they don't want to do. And then you get pummeled with a whole load of inspirational questions. So you've achieved a real cut through. And then we know that they obviously then go on to go look at the platform and the school's feedback to us, how engaged it was. So that was a great first leverage of the collaboration of the industry doing something for the first time completely together and making an impact to benefit the industry.
I mean, this is that whole schools program is absolutely critical, because one thing I've often considered is that as education continues to reshape itself slowly, but it is reshaping itself. We have traditional academic pathways, and then more and more, certainly in sort of higher education, further education, more and more properly structured vocational opportunities are being developed. And I've always felt that the events industry sits halfway between both of those, between academic learning and vocational learning. It's almost a 50-50 split. When I think of my day-to-day job working in a conference or a trade show, doing ops, an event, or production managing something, I'm either on my laptop doing some form of form filling or writing emails, and I've got to use good written English. I've got to build spreadsheets, etc., etc. And then I'll be back on a floor somewhere in a high vis that is very, very much vocational. And I think that there's such a lack of understanding about A, what the events industry is, and B, whether or not it could be a viable career opportunity to kids from a young age. And so to get to them while they're 11 to 16, to start actually not just inspiring them, because it's not about inspiration. The inspiration will come later. It's about actually letting them know what opportunities are there for them. I think it's
Yeah.
critical.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have to do a nod to all our sponsors. There's many businesses from some of the biggest venues and agencies, production houses, and so on that sponsor each region. And they totally believe in what you've just said. They recognise they have a responsibility to really be really open and really broad with the messaging from the schools program, so that one of the slides in the presentation asks kids to put their hands up if they're into gaming, into charity fundraising, into music, theatre, sport, into art and design, into DT and making things, and different hands go up. And then the next slide comes up and matches all those different interests to actual job roles in the industry. They had no idea that because they were quite introvert and just did their thing that they were quite passionate about, that there's opportunities in the event industry. They'd see events, they have no idea of the massive supply chain and the huge amount of different job roles, which obviously the careers hub sections. I will also say the sponsors particularly support the fact that we don't just go into secondary state schools, of which there's about 5,000 in the country, and we're engaged with about 15% of them already. We've got obviously a long way to go, but we also do pupil referral units, alternative education, and SEND. In fact, of that 142,000 odd, over about 5,000 kids are from those different academic backgrounds. So to have a real range of different types of young people with a real range of perhaps opportunities presenting to them, to see someone from the industry come in from their region and explain that broad breadth. And as you say, they have no idea. They really don't. We've never defined ourselves. We never defined and showcased all that breadth of opportunity and the sectors. So they have no idea what to expect. And by the end of it, it does blow their mind. It really does. You see the change of their face, and it's so empowering for the ambassadors as well, who come out really feeling like they've credibly, in half an hour, 40 minutes, actually maybe have changed young people's lives. And we're just obviously 2 years in, we're just beginning to hear and be contacted by a number of people who have now left school. And in fact, a couple of them came up to us Confex this year and actually said, "I'm here because some incredibly good-looking ball bloke presented to them a couple of years ago." Probably not me. And
definitely not me.
I'm now studying, or I've just entered this agency, and it's as useful for them as it is people who are already in the industry. So we are beginning to really, hopefully, help the industry get that real eclectic and diverse mix of interested people, but interested with their eyes wide open. They may have thought, "Oh, I'd love to go into music, or I'd love to go into festivals, I'd love to work at Comic-Con for exhibitions." We give them that more broader understanding so that they don't go too niche and decide too quickly, because often we'd like them to go, "I'd love to use my passion, my interest in charity fundraising, or in art, or in design, or in DT. Is the industry actually for me?" You could work cross-sector. We all know that, whatever your interest, there is quite a lot of transition. So the broader story they get, we cut off less talent opportunity to maintain that interest to the next stage.
Sure. Yeah. And we need to sort of, continue this story and continue this journey in the evolution to where we now sit today, which is the Experience of Work program, which has recently been announced. And, I'm looking at a copy of the full press release, and it's pretty straightforward to understand, but it also provokes a lot of questions when I was reading through it. So let's frame it first of all for people. What is the Experience of Work program?
Okay, so obviously, if you've gone into a school, you presented to a group of children about what the events industry is, that's great. They get the interest. They've got a mechanism to perhaps go and look at the platform. And we started looking at this as a stage 2 at the beginning of this year, and then weirdly, at the same time, by luck or strategy, obviously the recent NEETs report has come out, and also the government has recently launched a whole new mandate for all schools across the country to have each kid leave school. By the time they leave school, they've had to have done 10 days work experience. It's called EqualX. And the schools are in a bit of a how the hell are we going to deliver that? And there's a really clear, meaningful framework to the EqualX Experience of Work. And we were thinking, and we'd heard a lot from our industry, that they'd love to have kids come into their workplace, warehouse, office, doing a build on site. But they're really worried about the time it will take, the reputational side, the safeguarding, insurance. What actually do they deliver content-wise during the day, and how much drain that might be on the company that's really, going millions of miles an hour. So all at the same time, with the government mandate and the stage 2 to our schools program, after they had that, it became very obvious that a work experience, or experience of work as we call it, program was needed. And also historical work experience has been hit and miss. One child, 12 years, 13, 14, going into a big work environment on their own for a week is incredibly intimidating. Often they don't get to do and learn much. They're put in a corner. Often the company doesn't really know what to do with them. Whereas the experience of work is designed to take down all those barriers of worry about what to do with them, the compliance, the safeguarding, the time. We don't want anyone to reinvent the wheel. We're doing all that hard work in a toolkit called Experience of Work Toolkit that breaks down step-by-step guide of how to do it in a compliant way, whether it's half a day or a full day. And most importantly, it's in a community group environment. So it'd be average of about 15 kids. Sometimes it's 5, sometimes it can be up to 50. Go into this work environment for either 2 or 3 hours or 4 or 5 hours. That shared community feeling gives them a lot more confidence. The framework gives it a lot more compliance and a real structure to it, real meaningful. The Equal-X is very clear on that. And so a variety of different environments, whether it's build an office, whether it's then the agenda could be meeting a few different departments, having a tour, doing a little challenge, and then a feedback session, which is really important. So the toolkit will really support that and give a real next stage to people learning about the schools program, the industry from the schools engagement program, and going into a work environment in a really confident, punchy, inspirational way, and come away feeling that they've got it. They understand just how they apply that overview to the actual individual business that it fits in, and where they fit into the big industry as a whole. So that's.
And in the announcement, it does specifically reference that the funding through Purple Guide grant will support the setup and delivery of 500 experience of work opportunities. So there is a number been placed on it at the moment. Presumably, you would hope that once that initial 500 have had that experience, that this is something then that continue to evolve and grow, and maybe that there'll be funding for an expanded number of places in future.
Well, that press release is probably a couple of weeks old, because we've already had 200 more places pledged by a number of other associations. Our target is 1,500 in year 1. We're launching in September. So from the sort of Event Hire Association to ABCO, MIA, AV, PSA, Plaza, and Purple Guide, they've all pledged a number of places on behalf of their members to draw down on as a member benefit. And they'll be announcing that, as when we launch later in the autumn. As I say, our target is 1,500 for the year. So we've got another 600-700 to go to be pledged. But at £35 per cost, it's trying to be really inclusive. So if an average business does like 10 to 15, that's £400 or £500, which will hopefully is not a massive drain on even on smaller businesses. And we've actually had a huge amount of interest direct from some big venues, some big agencies, which I won't name right out because it's not fair at the moment because they're not signed off. But
quite right, yeah.
We've got a number of big businesses around the country that are already pledging that they might do 10, 15 every quarter for some local schools. So it looks like we're going to hit that target very quickly. And obviously, the outdoor events is the focus for the Purple Guide, so that will be for their sector. AV obviously very much has venues. MIA, ABCO, Plaza, PSA have their own members from different sectors, so they'll be used by those members businesses to meet a lot of different sort of sector supply chain and venues and organisers, and individual businesses obviously showcase that. So it's really exciting because we haven't even launched this yet. It's launching in September, so this is a pre-tease. But the amount of appetite and understanding of how experience of work is important, the government mandate, the barriers in the past, the will is there. What do we do with them? And hopefully us streamlining it so the cost with the toolkit is really low. And it will become really easy to sign up to, because we're going to launch an online dedicated portal in January, February next year, which is very similar to the schools one. So on the schools one, schools sign up on the portal, put their engagement in, ambassadors go on and say, I can do that date, and so on. The other way around with the experience of work, the companies, the individual employers will put their date. I can do 15 kids in November, and it could be on a build, or it could be our warehouse, whatever. And then the schools, who we obviously got a huge relationship with, will then go, oh, we can do that date with year 11s. And then they'll click on it and confirm it. And then we'll take care of the logistics of it, with the toolkit obviously being talked through. So it's trying to make it really easy and take all the barriers down for everyone. and the cost being really inclusive for a lot of types of businesses and associations to get involved to represent different areas of the industry, as well as bigger, perhaps, businesses getting involved directly.
Well, it's bizarre that we're having this conversation today, because actually a business that I work for locally, where I'm based in South Yorkshire, actually had a work experience lad in their last week. And that ties in specifically with this time of the academic year, that they are year 10 students who in September will start their final year of GCSEs. So last week they've done basically all their academic learning, they've done their mocks, all the sort of the end of year exams are done and dusted. They're into the last couple of weeks of the academic year. So that's an ideal time for them to go off on work experience, where a lot of the year groups, the lower year groups, are then transitioning up into the following year. So how much tie-in, how much flexibility does there have to be with your experience of work program in order to fit the requirements of the academic year from the schools themselves and the students, and what works for them?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, our target is sort of, year 9 and 11 mainly. We will do year 7 and 8, but, the target is that sort of, 12 to 16-year-olds, those years 9 to 11, where they're coming up to their GCSEs. We've also been asked to do years 12 and 13, so the 17, 18-year-olds as well. We're pretty open, but it's obvious that the parents and the teachers at that sort of 13, 14, 15, 16 come up to you, asking them, what's your plan for post 16? Are you going to stay in school? Are you going to go and do a placement, apprenticeship? Do you want to go and study at a college? So that's the prime sort of target audience. And from a sort of seasonal perspective, obviously the holidays are out from a school's group perspective. It depends on the year group, because obviously the GCSE in the summer, they have that, and they have the mocks and thing, but other year groups are open in different times. So it actually spreads out quite nicely across the year groups.
Yeah.
From a sector perspective, the outdoor industry particularly are very busy in the summer. The corporate side might be a bit quieter, but then the autumn and the spring terms are very busy for the corporate world. But we seem to have a lot of interest from people, especially when the employees can pick a day themselves and not be they can then choose when they've got an availability with the forecast. Then it's up to the schools to comply with that. So the onus is on the schools to fit in with the industry, who obviously have a huge amount of scheduling and so on to do with the capacity and where they are on site or doing project work. So yeah, there's a nice spread of year groups, and there's a nice spread of seasonality, but there's this is new. This is new for the government, it's new for the schools, it's new for the industry. So with a little caveat of, we are learning as we go with this. The Careers Enterprise company that runs this on behalf of the government is actually talking to us a lot, because we're almost at the forefront of it as much as they are developing it. And we've done a number of pilots. We did one at the O2 with AEG. We did one at the QE2 Centre. We did one at the Plaza Show up in Leeds. We did one with the agency, The Team, formerly Wasserman. And I think that was with Send Kids as well, actually. So we have got quite a robust framework we're building from learning from this, but it is quite new. So we've said to all those organisations that are pledging, just bear with us. We're developing as we go, but we've got a pretty good idea what the toolkit's going to be, and the pilots have really informed that. Obviously, when the portal launches, the digital portal in February or March, that become an easier way of matching up the schools to the businesses in an automated way. So it's so exciting and so needed.
Yeah, and one thing I would say from first-hand experience, I've my event business and my own sort of freelance work has actually brought me into contact with schools and young people on a regular basis over the last decade or so. And I'm also fortunate enough to have family and close friends who work in education, both primary and secondary. And one thing I'd say is that if there is a new directive or an element of compliance at a school or in any educational institution has to fulfill and adopt, if an organization comes along and says, we're going to help you make that a bit easier, my experience tells me that those institutions and those schools will jump at that opportunity. If they've now got to comply with this and offer it, and you come along and say, well, look, we can offer 20 places to your kids if any of them are interested in this field of work, then I think you're likely to be presented with a scenario where schools go, fantastic, we'll work with you on this if you can help us out, because that's 20 spaces that they don't have to find. That's days of work from a member of their team not having to work to find those experience places.
It's free for the schools. We've got a huge relationship with hundreds of schools who already know us and trust us from the schools program. industry trust us, and we're credibly created and operating on behalf of the industry, so they get us and trust us with our profile. It's a lot of things need to come together. There's a lot of detail in the Equalex which we've had to read through, which we don't therefore need. We can digest that and précis it into a really simple toolkit so that the schools believe in the compliance, and the businesses have to try and wrangle that through individually. So those barriers are taken away, and the schools, with that, they don't just take on anyone. They have a safeguarding and a compliance remit, so that to build up the relationship is really important. And one of the biggest hopeful legacies from this is that when individual businesses in certain regions, in presenting to the schools in the engagement program or develop it with the experience of work, they then build up their own relationships directly with their local schools that they may have wanted in the past. Trust me, schools are not easy to get through to. There are wonderful CEC hubs around the country that are meant to be the conduit between industry and schools. But still, some schools are really resource poor. They're really under it, timeline, pressure of resources and the scheduling with the kids. So, we've got a dedicated person called Jenny who's, 2 days a week just calling schools, while Sophie and Candice obviously oversee most of the schools and the experience of work program. But you do need to spoon feed basically the schools so that they have ability to digest it and understand that you're compliant and it's robust and tried and tested. And get through to the right person. And it's not their fault. They're incredibly busy, and industry incredibly busy as well. So to make it really simple and easy and digestible for them and really affordable, there's several key stakeholders here to manage and bring together, which fortunately we've created a really good platform and foundation stone to do that as well over the last few years. So we're very empathetic to the schools, very empathetic to the businesses and how busy they are, and the individual time that they might dedicate to this. But to make it really simple and easy, hopefully reassures everyone that it's all about the kids, and it's all about inspiring them in the most meaningful way. And there's a huge amount of these meaningful purposes defined in the Equalex compliance, and we obviously tick all those boxes. So it's not a waste of anyone's time. It really can make a difference to someone's life and career. And it's very empowering for the employer as well, for the 2 or 3 staff to get involved in it and see the experience and the actual output and the legacy of the kids on the day is very, very rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. And my big takeaway from today's conversation is the amount of people that I still meet in the industry day to day. You bump into people and we're talking to people all the time who it was never their plan to start in the events industry or to be working where they are now. The amount of people who mid to senior level in the industry who fell into it accidentally 20 years ago and 20 years on find themselves, absolutely. If that's not going to sustain itself forever. And in an industry that's worth the amount of money that it is worth, we can't look to the future of the industry and still just rely on people accidentally falling into it when it was never their plan. There has to be a longer term plan than that, both for the future of the industry, but actually retrospectively looking at how we're going to get people inspired into it at an early age. And when I look back now to the things that interested me as a 13, 14, 15-year-old, the things that I was interested in then and the things that I like to do, like hijacking the back of an old hi-fi to figure out if I could connect it to a VHS player, I'm now working doing AV production in events. The stuff that I was interested in and actually wanted to learn about myself when I was are actually all the things that I'm utilizing now. And had somebody given me this opportunity back then, I probably would have been able to identify, there's a career pathway there that might suit my skill set. And we haven't had that before in this industry. We haven't had those opportunities. And we simply need to sit in front of young people and say, if you're interested in this or this could be a pathway, exactly as you explained earlier. And that's my biggest takeaway, is not landing in 20 years time in a situation where people are no longer accidentally falling into the industry. They've actually chosen that from the age of 13, 14 years old.
Exactly. And joining the dots, I mean, I heard a quote recently of one of the biggest qualifications you can give to any child is confidence. And that's, especially when some of them have grown up in their really formative years during COVID, they aren't confident. There's all that reports of NEETs and people having to send over 200 CVs even just to get a response, and AI, still filtering through them, and they're feeling very demotivated, very worried about their next stage post GCSE and so on. We can inform them that we've got a growing, robust industry, and there are huge amounts of new skill sets required in this industry, evolving along with, the new variety of formats of events we do, the technology, marketing, social media, content strategy, as well as obviously the nuances of the individual sectors. And, you know, we are in competition with other industries that are grabbing them really proactively. So if we want the best talent and be this, you know, the UK industry, which is what we're bigging up, to be the best in the world, they need to consider events alongside equally, if not better, any other competitive industry that's targeting them. And if we can be a small part of helping us grab the best talent for the future resilience of the industry and the individual businesses of any size, with the support of the industry, you know, we're hopefully going to be in a better place going forward, as you say.
Absolutely. Really important before we wrap up today, Rick, that we tell people how to find out more about this. So give us the website, probably the simplest place or the best place for people to start.
Yeah, it's www.thepowerofevents.org. And on there, there's the overview of the sectors. There's the schools engagement programs on there. From the end of July, there'll be a whole new section on experience of work. So whatever your interest, just becoming involved in any of our projects, becoming a supporter or partner, becoming a sponsor of a schools engagement, interested in anything, the experience of work, we'll be launching an event in London, hopefully towards the end of September. You're welcome to come along to that to learn more. Just get in contact with us at hello@thepowerofevents.org. We'd love to chat to you, whatever you're interested, just to find out more. But a lot of it is on the website as well.
Fabulous. And please do stay in touch. We want to know how this is progressing. You know, once this launches in September, and you start to get the involvement from those schools and from the institutions, please do keep in touch and let us know how that's progressing.
I certainly will. And I invite the whole industry to learn about it, get involved. Whoever you are, you can have a role in this, even if it's light touch to meet your busy schedules. It'd be really exciting to hear from you, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about it today, James.
Not a problem at all, Rick. And before we wrap up and say thanks to my guest properly at the end of today's episode, just a couple of mentions for stuff at our end of things. So eventindustrynews.com. If you have started your journey today by listening to the podcast on your audio platform, please do make sure that you head over to eventindustrynews.com to check out the latest news, features, special supplements, and of course the supplier directory. If you work in the events industry and you're looking for a product, service, or supplier, the chances are you will find it within the supplier directory on eventindustrynews.com, where you can find video versions of all of these podcasts. You may have started your journey there today by watching today's podcast on the website. If you've done that, thank you very much for doing so. Please do also make sure that you go over to wherever you get your audio podcasts from. That could be Spotify, Apple Music, etc., and make sure that you like and subscribe to the podcast to get all of the latest episodes as they come out. So it brings me to the end of today's episode, and the final thing I should do is to say thank you to my guest today, Rick Stainton, the CEO of the Power of Events, for joining us today. Rick, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Events Industry News. You've been a partner from the start. You've been brilliant. So keep the great work up, and I really appreciate the opportunity today.
Not a problem at all, and we'll see everybody on the next edition of the podcast. Thanks, everyone.